Morning, everybody. Welcome to Turnaround Tuesday. I think we've been doing this now for about 10 weeks. I think you can see my two special guests, Peter D. and Jeff Carr. I welcome them today. We're going to talk about some topics, but one of the things that I'm probably going to miss a little bit on the campaign trail is Peter and Jeff. We've become good friends on the campaign trail, and we're very honored that they endorsed our campaign last week. But we're going to miss them out on the campaign trail as Jeff was running for lieutenant governor and Peter's running for governor. So, but things we're going to talk about today, more importantly, is I've always talked about how it's all about collaboration. How we're going to have people at the table talking about issues, solving issues, talking about discussion and ideas for New Mexico. So that's what we're going to talk about today. More importantly, we're going to talk about job creation. We're going to talk about renewables, healthcare, and cannabis, and hopefully keep this to about 30 minutes. We may not take questions today, but if you do have questions, please submit them. I'll try and get to them if we have time, and then we'll talk about, and if not, we'll answer your questions later. But after that, I'd like to turn it over just so they can say a couple of brief comments. Peter, welcome to our first Turnaround Tuesday.
Thank you. It's really an honor to be here. And this was really an interesting campaign because all the weeks of going around to county conventions, I would listen to Jeff talk, and each week I got more and more impressed. I mean, here's a guy who had some really big ideas, really was ready to make some bold changes in what New Mexico needs. And that's important. I mean, we all know we're like last in everything. That's not news to anybody. We all know that even though we have so few people working, the wages are just horrendously low in this state. If people blow a tire, it's like a crisis. They have to decide are they going to pay their rent that month or are they going to actually get the tire replaced and go to work. So what I like about Jeff is he's got some big ideas on how to invest and create jobs and really turn New Mexico around. That's why I'm happy to join this campaign.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us. And if you're let me look down a little bit. By the way, I've never been a host before in a TV show, so bear with me. But anyway, thanks everybody for joining us this morning. I'm kind of looking at the computer. My computer actually went down this morning, so welcome Charlie, welcome Philip, welcome James, Carrie. But Jeff, welcome to Turnaround Tuesdays for our campaign.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you having me and giving me this opportunity to say why I'm endorsing Jeff Apodaca for governor. I first met Jeff at the Progressive Summit in Albuquerque well over a year ago. He spoke right before I spoke, and this was just a few days after I announced my campaign for lieutenant governor. I was quite impressed. At the time, it was Pat Davis who was putting on the conference. Yeah. He made a joke about, well, hey, if it's Jeff and Jeff, well, now it's going to end up being Jeff and Jeff and Peter and a few other people too. But I was so impressed with what Jeff said about small business. And that 95% of the people employed in this state are employed by small business and how important that is. And then I've gotten to know Jeff along the trail. Practically have his speeches memorized, except they're so detailed. His is a little bit more difficult to memorize. And so impressed with Jeff's rattling off of all these facts and figures and all that, and his great ideas. He's a great campaigner. He's got a great personality. He's got a great family. I've grown to trust him. I've grown to like him and his family very much, and he supports all the things that I support, and more. And I was really surprised to see how strong he was on veterans and employing veterans as well, and that's a big issue for me, being a veteran. And I hope that all of you will take a look at Jeff's platform and really take a strong look and see where he's got a great plan to turn New Mexico around.
Well, thank you, Peter and Jeff. And the first thing I want to get into conversations-wise is really about job creation. I think you've heard us talk about job creation and how our job creation, we've actually lost over 146,000 jobs in the last 10 years. We've had the highest unemployment in the country when everybody else in the country, not just around us, everybody else in the country has done that. Our jobs plan is about investing back into New Mexico. We sit on $23 billion. And our goal is to invest $1 billion into small business at 2.5% debt financing. We have to grow jobs. And as we've talked about on the campaign trail, by investing into small business, we can literally grow 75 to 100,000 new jobs as we move forward on that. And as Jeff talked about earlier, veterans. It's extremely important that we help our veterans, and we have a plan to reach out to our veterans from the community up. You're going to hear me talking about collaboration. You're going to hear me talk about moving from the community up and investing in ourselves, making sure everybody across the board. Our number one issue in our state is private capital. There's no private capital being invested, and so we sit on $23 billion, and we're going to invest $1 billion. But Peter, let's talk about small business. You've been on the campaign trail. Tell me a little bit about some ideas that we've talked about small business and how we can grow the economy.
Well, all around the state, there's so many businesses that closed. They used to produce plyboard up in Las Vegas, okay? And we used to produce so many different things around the state, and those businesses have shut down. They just need some capital to get back in there. And hand in hand with business, I believe, is wages. 70% of the economy is driven by consumer spending.
Correct.
And so as wages rise, then there's more out there for people to use. And I know you're committed to $15 an hour living wages, which is real important. That's going to double the amount of money in circulation. So each business will have double the amount of sales at the flower shop, at the grocery stores, and all the local businesses. And I know you're going to increment it in slowly, so it's not a big hit on businesses. So this will be over a number of years till we get there. And I think what you're doing is real important. On the campaign trail, I remember Congresswoman Lujan Grisham talked about $12 an hour wages was her target goal. And I did some math, and if you're a family of four and you don't take any days off, you work 52 weeks, no vacation, you end up with $360 above the poverty line.
I remember you talking about
and
that.
so this is what you're doing is going to really change business and change people's lives.
Great. Jeff, we've talked about job creation, and we know how important it is, specifically up in the rural communities and northern communities. We've talked about how we're going to invest into agriculture. We're going to invest into small business. We're going to invest into biotechnology and opportunities like that. We've talked about the University of New Mexico and biotechnology and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on business creation and some of the stuff you were talking about and running about?
Well, I think, one of the fastest growing industries in the world is renewable energy. And wind and solar, we're ranked number 2 as far as the potential for solar in this country, and we're ranked number 14 for wind energy. We get still a huge amount of our energy from coal, and I think that you and I believe that New Mexico can do better. We know we can find jobs and for coal workers if we invest in renewables. And tell me how your investment will affect renewable energy and provide jobs as we transition to clean energy.
That's a good transition because we want to talk about renewable energies, and I think we all of us agree that it's an opportunity for New Mexico. So, we've talked many times about how when you look at our economy, 35% of our economy is oil and gas, and we know we have to diversify our economy and do things better. We sit in a state, we've all kind of talked about this, we sit in a state that's ranked second in renewable energy opportunities, but we're ranked 48th in production. Mm-hmm. Now in today's market, and you've heard me talk about this many times, in today's market, we can literally create solar and wind energy at anywhere from 2 to 4 cents a kilowatt. So let's take the 4 cents a kilowatt. Now as your governor, you have my commitment that we're going to invest $1 billion between private and public partnerships into renewable energies. And that's going to create, we're estimating between 10 and 12,000 direct jobs just in renewables immediately. And we know those direct jobs will create ancillary jobs anywhere from 2 to 3 times the number. So by investing in renewables, both between private and public, we can create almost 30,000 jobs in the state of New Mexico. Now I've said many times, you guys have heard me say this on the campaign trail many times, is our $1 billion investment. I believe the state can invest $100 million. We can go then to the federal government and get federal grants up to, we believe, $200 million. So that's $300 million. And then the rest of the money will come from the private industry. Now there's $1 trillion, according to the Wall Street Journal, there's $1 trillion in the world looking to invest in renewable energies. And 2 of the companies I've talked to, one in California, one in Florida, actually the company in California has literally invested $500 million into renewables in Mexico City. So it's an opportunity for New Mexico, not only for job creation, but it's an opportunity so we can lower electricity cost. But it's clean energy. It's an opportunity for New Mexico, and it's a way we can start transitioning our economy to renewables. And by investing $1 billion between private and public partnerships, that's what we're looking at. And yes, as your governor, I want to power your house. I want to power this building we sit in. But I also want to power the state of California. I also want to power Nevada, Arizona. 8-9 months out of the year, during the demand months, we can literally sell it at wholesale from 11 to 18 cents a kilowatt. I think we're all pretty smart men. I think if we can make an 80% return on our investment and create new jobs for New Mexico, create new revenue streams for New Mexico, I think that's a great opportunity. Peter, you and I have talked many times on renewables. What's your thought about that?
So what I really like about your approach to renewables is a lot of times when you hear the word public-private partnership, it's really political speak for, oh, we're going to give you tax breaks and then you're just going to drain our treasury. But what I hear you talk about renewables, you're talking about an investment stake for the state. And so this will mean instead of relying on the oil and gas, which, we'll get all our eggs in one basket. We saw a couple of years ago when prices tanked, they had to lay off teachers and all that horrible stuff. We're having ongoing revenue streams because we're one of the partners in selling to California, in selling to Texas and Arizona. And that's what I really like is the fact that it's an investment of public resources that are going to yield dividends for years to come beyond just the tax base.
Correct. Jeff, I know we've talked about it. In fact, up where you live, up in by the Taos area, Kit Carson has already gone to almost 50% renewables just within the utilities.
Yes.
And they've been very, very, very aggressive with that. It's an opportunity that we can actually copy and look at. Again, I just like to create renewables on a much larger, big idea scale.
Yes.
About powering other states. But what's your thoughts on that?
Well, one of the things I've learned, I talked to Kit Carson Co-op, which is a non-profit cooperative that was formed decades ago to provide energy for the rural areas of Taos and especially that area and also part of Colfax County. They have a tremendous business model where they want to go 100% solar by day by 2020. And of course, they're working on the renewables or the storing energy and those types of things. And they've got a great business model for that, but also for high-speed internet as well, along with it. And they've already done that in grants, which is way outside of their district. Yep. And so I think we should look at their model, and is that a possibility to spread across the state of New Mexico? That's my idea.
Well, great. That's great. That's great. Mm-hmm. I think those are great ideas. I think we've all collaborated about that kind of stuff. One of the other topics we want to talk about today was healthcare. Healthcare, and Peter and I have talked many times on the campaign trail about healthcare. One of the concerns I have healthcare today is our costs continue to go up. 2 years ago, I left Univision and became an independent contractor as a consultant to them and to other companies. And so I'm an independent consultant. We talked many times, you're going to hear me talk about this. For my family, we pay $23,000 a year in healthcare costs between our premiums and between out-of-the-pocket expenses. The average New Mexican family can't afford that. We talked about, all three of us have talked about it many times with other candidates. We do all agree on a single-payer system, an open market system, that we can start investing together with many different opportunities. In fact, I've gone to a progressive calculator. When you look at some of the ideas that we're talking about and a single payer system, we're literally looking at, I did the numbers myself, out of the $23,000, I would save $6,000 a year annually, and most New Mexican families would save more than that. But I want to hear your guys' ideas, because we always talk about bringing ideas to the table. Let's discuss the ideas at the table. And what about healthcare? Because I know you're probably a little bit more progressive than I am on some of the healthcare issues, but I think there's a lot of things that we all kind of come together about on some ideas. But Peter, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I've been a big supporter of the New Mexico Health Security Campaign. It's been around since 1993. It's been endorsed by 145 organizations across the state. And it's going to be a great way, because there's plenty of money. If you go to the Progressive Democrats of America, you can find that calculator Jeff was talking about. You can see how much you would save if we went to single-payer health care. And there's plenty of money. It's just going to be spent differently. You take all the money in Medicaid and you just move it over. That becomes the base. The feds want to do that anyway. They're talking about block grants. Then you have ERISA, which is the businesses that are required to provide insurance when they have so many employees. And instead of offering many plans, we'll offer one plan equal to or better what state employees get. And we can do it at such a lower price because it's going to be a pool of 1.7 million people. Right. And then everybody on the exchange currently buying individually can buy this one plan, and kind of on a sliding scale basis according to what you afford. It's the same amount of money that's spent, but we get 14% more health care because we're not paying insurance companies for administration and profit. And that's going to create a lot of jobs. I saw last year the Workforce Solutions said the number one growth sector in New Mexico's economy, healthcare jobs. Number two was energy, renewable energy. So that's going to create a lot of jobs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jeff, what's your thought?
Well, I like how we always call these things progressive, but if you go to Europe, it was actually the conservatives in the Netherlands that wanted a single-payer healthcare plan. And why? Because it made sense. What we have now is a horrible business model, where we spend more money than any other country in the world, and we have one of the worst healthcare systems in the world, despite the fact that people want to tell you it's one of the best. And in some things we do, like transplants and things like that, but it costs so much more money. So in order to streamline it, we need to move to single-payer healthcare. We can't afford not to move to single-payer healthcare. If we don't, we're we're hurting our country, we're hurting our people, we're hurting our economy on every level. Everybody needs to be insured from the cradle to the grave, and we don't need people in our insurance companies who are working on how to not cover us. Instead, we need to have people working on how to best serve us so that we can be healthy.
We agree. So let me just to recap. Our healthcare plan. Yes, we believe in a single payer system, and yes, the New Mexico health security campaign is a very positive step moving that direction.
Yes.
But there's many things that we have to take a look at too. We're short 300 doctors. So we have a plan to invest into 300 more doctors in our state. Folks, every doctor we put in your community literally generates $1.8 million of economic growth to that community. Every doctor we put in your community literally creates 3 to 6 new jobs within your community. And we're short 300 doctors. I think we all agree with that, right?
Yeah.
And so I have talked to the University of New Mexico, the residency program, the Barral Medical School down in Las Cruces. We can fix this very simply by expanding or triple the size of our residency program in our state. I think that's the most important thing we can do. By doing that, we can then create over 300 new doctors. The University of New Mexico turns down 300 to 400 residencies a year because of space. So we have some great doctors that can literally, and by the way, the University of New Mexico has one of the best medical schools and residency programs in the country.
Yes.
So we can do that. Nurses, physician assistants. One of the things we haven't talked about, that we've talked about very privately, that I want to talk about today, is we know pharmaceutical costs are going up. Now, 52% of New Mexicans today are already on some type of government healthcare assistance today. So single payer does make sense in the state of New Mexico. But more importantly, we have figured out a way that we can lower our pharmaceutical costs by almost 80%. And we haven't really talked about this, so I'll kind of talk about it today. And I'd like to hear your guys' opinions on this. You may, Jeff. I know Peter and I have talked about it. You and I might talk about it. But bottom line is 99% of pharmaceutical generic drugs are made in Israel or India. We literally, by FDA, can ship them into New Mexico, relabel them under FDA guidelines, and control those costs ourselves, and then distribute that in an open market with a competitive marketplace, and control our own cost by doing just that on generics. And by the way, already 50% of New Mexicans are already on a generic plan. By doing that, we can lower pharmaceutical costs by 80% for New Mexicans by creating an open competitive market with us taking the lead on that. What's your guys' thoughts on that? Or I don't know if because I know you and I have talked about it.
So what I like is the way you can frame a bold idea, Jeff. This is what I like. You can frame a bold idea. We'll lower costs, and because the government is seeding businesses to do this, it's a revenue stream.
Right.
So not only do we grow jobs and businesses, we also help people get the drugs they need at an affordable price.
Cost.
This is the kind of outside the box thinking that I think your campaign brings that the other campaigns bring. I've been looking at Congresswoman Lujan Grisham for a while. She's not a co-sponsor of House Bill 676, Medicare for All. 120 Democrats around the country are co-sponsors, but in New Mexico, none of the Congress people support. It's like we don't deserve to get health care. We don't deserve the kind of lower prices and better care that you're offering.
Right.
That's why I'm really happy that you're running.
Oh, good. Jeff, your thoughts?
Well, we definitely, what you're talking about is a great idea. And I keep thinking about Eisenhower's warning about the military-industrial complex. But now we've got all these other industrial complexes, like Big Pharma, that's out of control. And they're giving so much money to all these other candidates and kind of controlling their votes and controlling their rhetoric and where they want to go. And we have to control our drug prices. We can't have these, like, I can't remember the guy's name who was testifying before Congress about how he raised the price on this one drug astronomically, and he didn't care. And he says, you can't do anything about it. Well, the guy's in prison right now. We can do something about these things.
Right.
And I like the can-do attitude that Jeff has about these things.
Well, thank you guys. And to recap healthcare, look, what I can tell you right now, what we have today is not working.
Everybody
Right?
knows.
Right.
I mean, by the way, the insurance companies, the hospital companies, the pharmaceutical companies, the doctors, the patients, New Mexicans, no one's happy with the system that we have today. So what I'm asking everybody is, let's be open-minded. Let's sit down at a table like we are today. Let's talk about open discussions. Let's talk about single payer. Let's talk about opening a competitive market. Let's talk about opening a competitive market within pharmaceuticals and medical. Let's talk about investing and expanding residency programs to bring more doctors to our state, and bring more nurses and physician assistants to our state. That's going to help us turn New Mexico around and invest in New Mexico. Now, the last topic today that we wanted to talk about today was cannabis. And I think you're in our campaign. We're the first campaigns to come out and talk about legalizing for adult usage. Now that you're out of the race and endorsed us, we're the only campaign that has literally come out and said that we would legalize it. Now, my other opponents are kind of wishy-washy, or they want to spend $400,000 or $500,000 more dollars on research to delay it and see if we can do it. Now, I've done a lot of conversations within the cannabis world, within Colorado and Oregon, and now we're seeing what's going on in California and Nevada.
Florida just stepped in. We're going to be last again if we don't move.
So again, it's one of the opportunities we have. We have an opportunity to be in front of the curve. Now, some of you may not have heard this story before, but I have personal experience with cannabis. If you don't know, New Mexico actually was, you guys have heard this on the campaign trail, but New Mexico actually was the first state to have legal cannabis, medical marijuana in the country. It was in 1978, and yes, I always love to brag about my family. It was my father that signed it into law in 1978, never knowing 2 years later, my senior year in high school, I got cancer. And I was doing pills and shots. In fact, I took so many shots in my right thigh that I couldn't feel my right thigh for 2 years. And I went to medical cannabis, and it was even my family, my grandmother, God rest her soul, my grandmother was even shocked. I could eat. It helped me get through that. I now use CBD oils on my lower back because I had a lower bad back because of high impact sports, the doctors say, my L3 and L4. The doctors were literally giving me 90 Vicodin a month. I was taking 2 to 3 Vicodin a day for the pain. And so we know the medical benefits of it.
Sure.
We've learned from Colorado. I've visited with Colorado many times. I do business up in Colorado. We know now how to regulate, how to monitor it. So it's an opportunity for the state of New Mexico. And let me tell you something. When you look at adult usage, when you look at expanding or triple the size of our medical, because our medical, we have to expand that.
Gosh, yeah.
And then the hemp production and the hemp opportunities, and then looking at agriculture. Folks, we're talking about 32,000 new jobs in the state of New Mexico, over $200 million of new tax revenues for our state. So here we are, my opponents keep talking about what we can't do, and we're talking about what we can do. We're talking about what we can do by investing into that. But let's talk about cannabis and hemp a little bit. I know, Peter, you've talked many times on the campaign trail. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, people always wonder about why am I supporting cannabis? Because the last 20 years I've done youth alcohol and tobacco prevention. And they're like, but Peter, cannabis is a drug. And I go, well, you got to understand research. And the research is very, very clear. In all the states that have legalized cannabis, there has been no increase in youth cannabis use. In fact, there's been a decrease in Colorado. In all the states that have legalized cannabis, there's been no increase in car crashes. So that's not a cause of that. And the positive side, there's been a 25% reduction in opioid prescription deaths.
Yeah.
That's been huge. That's why I'm supporting this. And what really is interesting to me is that I've talked to patients, I've talked to dispensaries, I've talked to people who do retail in other states, and we need a unified bill. And I've written up a platform on how to do that, and I know you're in agreement with this, that when we get elected, when you get elected, you know, we bring all the people to the table because that's what you excel at.
Right.
There were 25 different bills in the legislature 2 years ago, and some of them conflicted with the hemp and the cannabis. You bring them in, you sit them down, you get a unified bill that we can address all this. We could get this passed in 2019 realistically.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Jeff, thoughts?
A lot of thoughts. I'll give you my personal perspectives. I think they covered most of the points, a lot of the points that I wanted to talk about. I taught for 27 years, and I used to have kids come up. They do research papers about legalizing marijuana and all that, and I said, "Oh, you guys just want to get high," and I think it was finally Tom Hartman that really made me want to do the research on it and realize the benefits of cannabis medically, socially, economically. We don't want to just do it for economic benefit, but when there's economic benefit and there's no downside, is only good. Then again, we're in a situation where we can't afford not to legalize cannabis.
Right. I think there's, this is, I can tell you right now, us three, this is one topic we agree on 100% across the board. Whether you're talking about job creation, renewables, healthcare, we might all have different opinions how we want to get there, but we all have a solution. There's maybe a little bit different road. But when it comes to cannabis, when it comes to hemp, on the medical side, yes. I think all three of us have agreed. In fact, all three of us have been on cannabis forums
yes.
when other candidates forbid to show up and discuss those topics.
Right.
So this is one topic that we definitely agree on the cannabis side. And again, we know the medical benefits of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure this industry grows by tripling the size of the medical side of it as governor. Then we'll move to adult use immediately, and we feel very confident that over 77% of New Mexicans are favoring this, specifically in the Democratic side. There's a push in the legislators to push it through. So it's about leadership. It's about leadership and
yes.
doing things a different way. So we do strongly feel that this is an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you something else. You're looking at it. Canada has now gone, or in January, I guess it is. The whole country is going to be for adult usage and expanding medical. There are 4 states in northern Mexico that have now expanded it. And so we know the opportunity. So again, New Mexico, we can sit on the sideline, we can wait for 20 years and be last again, or it's an opportunity we can get ahead of the curve and really start investing into this. But anyway, we're right about the 30-minute mark, and I know we like to try and keep these at the 30-minute mark. There's a couple things I like to say. Our campaign is about big ideas, and new directions. I'm very honored to have Peter and Jeff endorsing our campaign. Thank you so much. It's been a little weird for me to sit here and talk on Turnaround Tuesdays with guests. I don't know if we'll continue this or not. Shay's actually not here today, so if you haven't heard Shay, and we haven't taken questions today, but I do see some questions that I'll try and respond back to you. But more importantly, folks, it's about investing into us. Mm-hmm. You're going to hear me talk about this a lot. We have $23 billion of investment funds, and we invest it all outside our state. And all we're going to do is we're going to invest 5% of your money back into New Mexico, into job creation, into small business. We're going to invest in this small business. We're going to create living wage jobs. We're going to create living wage opportunities, and we're going to create economic-based opportunities across the board. And I ask you, if you haven't seen our jobs plan, go to apo18.com, that's apo18.com, and look at our jobs plan. Because my opponent literally says it's not credible. My opponent literally says what we can't do. And as I said before, you deserve a governor who can talk about what we can do. What we can do is invest $1.5 billion of your funds into New Mexico with job creation. That's 225,000 new jobs. What we can do is invest in renewables. Over $1 billion between private and public investments. Keep it local, empower New Mexico, but also create revenue streams with California, Nevada, Arizona. Big ideas. We then can look at healthcare. Now we can collaborate with the private sector, the public sector, and look at a single payer system. We can lower our cost and create a competitive open market and make sure we're doing it the right way, because what we're doing today, we all agree, is not working.
Right.
So we have to collaborate and sit at the table. And then cannabis. There are 48,000 New Mexican patients today that we literally develop about enough medical cannabis for about 20,000. So we're actually creating a black market. So as your governor, I will expand the medical side immediately and get that done immediately, but we will push for adult usage. And we will push for hemp opportunities. And we have to start exporting. We have to start looking at new ways. So if you're okay with the status quo, if you like being 50th in job creation, if you like being 50th in education, by the way, I don't think any of us here at this table like being 50th. It's about time for major change. It's about new ideas and investing in New Mexico. So that's what I ask you to do. Take a look at our campaign. If you're in Santa Fe today, actually we're broadcasting live from Santa Fe today. If you're in Santa Fe today, we actually have a pizza party tonight for volunteers tonight. So go on Facebook, go online, come join us tonight. We need volunteers in Santa Fe. We will win Santa Fe County with your help. And we also have APO for Women for APO. They're getting together every Tuesday or Wednesdays in Albuquerque, and we're starting these across the state. So please take a look at our Facebook page, look at our website, and come join us. Because this is a revolution. This is change. This is major change. If you're okay with the status quo, going 50th, this campaign may not be for you. But if you want to look at investments, if you want to look at change, and I think Peter and Jeff, they've endorsed our campaign. They're here advising our campaign because it's about bringing everybody to the table and collaborating with everybody. So thank you all so much today. I appreciate Turnaround Tuesday. Next week, Jackie and I know you guys might have seen something earlier that Jackie and I were going to be together. Next week, Jackie and I just learned it's spring break for the kids, so we're hoping Turnaround Tuesday next week, Jack and I will be able to get together and talk about educational issues, talk about coding programs and things that Jackie's working on, and as First Lady, she'll push for our state, for our kids. Anyway, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Peter, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us and endorsing our campaign. Look forward to seeing you guys out there, and email us anytime you want. Thanks, everybody.
Many blessings to everybody.